call this meeting to order. Regular meeting of the Fort Ord Use Authority for Friday, February 12th at 2 p.m. Please, Board Member Morton, would you lead us in the salute to the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And happy Valentine's Day. Since I got to leave.
That's a national holiday, isn't it?
Hallmark, yes. We'll now be going into closed session conference with legal counsel relating to an existing litigation, Government Code Section 51956.9A. One case, Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Use Authority, case number M114961. Before going into closed session, is there any member of the public who desires to inquire or ask questions or make comments relating to this item? Oh, it's not on? It's not on this item. Okay. Seeing there's none on this particular item, we will now adjourn and go to closed session. We will get back as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you.
Board President, there is somebody who wants to comment on the closed session item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of my...
Hold on, wait for everybody to come back.
Mr. Chair and board members and staff, sorry for that confusion, but the purpose of my coming up...
Wait one moment,
Yes.
please, okay? Thank you. All right, if you may, we are open session, and we do have a member of the public desiring to speak on the closed session item. Please go ahead.
Yes, and thank you again, and thank you to all for that slight confusion, but rectifying that confusion. My name is Carlos Ramos, and I've just handed your board chair a copy of a memo, a letter that I would like to read real quickly. This is to the FORA board and staff from Carlos Ramos regarding public records request and general clarification. This is a formal request for the following information. Item A, public records request. Please consider this as a formal public records request on any and all board minutes, any and all agenda items, FORA board member documents and correspondence by Board Member Parker related to the non-supportive discussions and/or decisions taken by the board member Parker regarding water issues as a FORA board member. Item B, clarification of actions by board member Jane Parker. Please consider this a formal request of a formal and legal determination on whether board member Parker has or has not disqualified herself of any vote, closed session meetings, and/or board discussions related to water issues as a FORA board member vis-a-vis her activities in the community and/or as a supervisor on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. Last item, C, determination of disqualification. A formal and legal determination by FORA be made public of Board Member Parker and any other board member regarding deliberation and voting on matters on water issues and/or water issues before FORA that their respective agency, city or county, has reviewed, that has or will come before the FORA board for consideration, as well as a formal legal determination of any impact on FORA board's master resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the board? I must admit I am somewhat confused as to how that relates specifically to the closed session item, but we have given you the opportunity. It is done, so thank you. We will now go to closed session. Guess some of the board members don't want to come back. Okay, we're back in open session. We will now have an announcement by our authority council as to what action, if any, is taken in closed session.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address the closed session. The board met in closed session on item 3A under the case Key Fort Ord Wild versus the Fort Ord Reuse Authority. The board considered council's advice, and at this point, there's nothing to report.
Thank you very much. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, starting with the voting members. County of Monterey, Supervisor Jane Parker. Here. Supervisor Dave Potter. Here. Supervisor John Phillips. Here. City of Delray Oaks, Councilmember Kristen Clark. Here. City of Marina, Mayor Pro Tem Frank O'Connell.
Here.
Councilmember Gail Morden.
Here.
City of Monterey, Councilmember Alan Haffa.
Here.
City of Seaside, Mayor Ralph Rubio.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ian.
Here.
Mayor Pendergrass. Here. City of Salinas, Mayor Gunter.
Here.
City of Pacific Grove, Mayor Bill Camp. City of Carmel by the Sea, Councilmember Victoria Beach. Ex-official members, Transportation Agency of Monterey County, Debbie Hale. She's not here. Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, PK Diffenbaugh.
Here.
University of California, Santa Cruz, Donna Blitzer. Here. California State University, Monterey Bay, President Eduardo Ochoa. Here. U.S. Army, Colonel Paul Fellinger. Fort Ord Army Base Realignment and Closure, Mr. Collins.
Here.
Thank you. Monterey Peninsula College, Vicky Nakamura. Here. Monterey Salinas Transit, Lisa Reinheimer. And Marina Coastwater District, Howard Gustafson. Here. Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. It's now time for acknowledgments, announcements, and correspondence. Michael?
Yes.
Please.
Yes, Chair O'Connell, members of the board. I hope you can hear me. I can barely hear this one. So, in fact, that's much better. All right, thank you. I have a resolution that I would like the board to consider today, and in particular, I would like to ask John Dunn, who's joining us today, if he would join me over here at the podium. This is a resolution that I consulted with both Mayor Rubio and Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby about, and I'm going to read this as John is on his way up. A resolution of the governing body of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority acknowledging John Dunn. It is hereby resolved by the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors that whereas John Dunn served with honor and accolade to the benefit of the Monterey Bay Peninsula and Central California in varying executive positions over the past 4 decades, including posts as city manager for Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and Seaside, and whereas Mr. Dunn was forced to delay his retirement date on multiple occasions, demonstrating the difficulty in replacing a legend in his own time. And whereas Mr. Dunn joined the city of Seaside in 2012, offering instrumental leadership in balancing the city budget and staff reorganization to improve public services, and whereas Mr. Dunn's service to Seaside was represented to the city in many key activities, especially as a consistent sound advisor on the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Administrative Committee and the Regional Urban Design Guidelines Task Force, providing cogent comments leading to higher quality end products. And whereas as Seaside City Manager, Mr. Dunn has been lauded, complimented for his effective use of fountain and quill pens, standard scratch pads, and paper date books while avoiding the temptation to access trendy technical appurtenances. And whereas Mr. Dunn's public service of 43 years included interim city manager roles for Pismo Beach, Grover Beach, and Rohnert Park. And whereas in 2010, Mr. Dunn was named Citizen of the Year by the San Luis Obispo Chamber of Commerce for his service to community organizations And in 2013, he was awarded the Dr. Lou Tadone Humanitarian Award. And whereas Mr. Dunn is known for his genteel, polite, restrained, behind-the-scenes diplomatic style, encountering broad council member expression of views and opinions, now therefore be it resolved by this board that for all the reasons above but not limited thereto, that the board hereby expresses its sincere commendation for John Dunn, and be it further resolved on behalf of the entire Fort Ord Reuse Authority family, the Board of Directors extends its gracious appreciation and deepest gratitude to John Dunn for his leadership and exemplary service to the Monterey Bay region. Chair O'Connell, I ask that this be introduced into the record by Mayor Rubio, please.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution acknowledging the City of Seaside Manager, Mr. John Dunn.
With honor, I second that motion. I thank the county supervisor.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any comment from the public?
Aye.
Seeing none, we'll close public comment. On the second. On the second.
What you fail to mention is he used to be, every Friday night he was at the sardine factory, and he's got one of the chairs along with me. I was there to keep guard on him. I was the DA at the time, so that goes back since '71.
I was younger then.
Let me take a vote and then John, give you opportunity to speak. Let me make a comment, please. Okay, thank you, Chair, for your indulgence. I'd just like to say that the City of Seaside is very proud of the service that City Manager Dunn provided to the city and to the community as a whole. His very strong leadership style and his ability to work through the toughest problems helped us immensely over the years. I am very glad that this board has seen fit to provide this resolution in recognition, and I think it's a small piece of recognition in comparison to the service that he's provided to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. John, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you also for passing it unanimously, so I don't have to come back 2 weeks from now. I just want to say it's been an honor to serve the City of Seaside. It's been a great honor to serve on the Administrative Committee of FORA. We are genuinely blessed in this area to have the beauty, not just of the scenery, but of the people of the Monterey Peninsula. I felt very fortunate to have an opportunity to meet many of the people in the City of Seaside, and they're a wonderful group of people. But we have a real responsibility to take care of these blessings, and so I wish to you, all of you, the very best in protecting and enhancing the Monterey Peninsula, and in particular this FORA area, the former Fort Ord. And I do greatly value this, appreciate it, and again, I wish you the very best in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Best of luck to you in the retirement. Michael, is there any other?
Yes, Chair, there's also another acknowledgement. I need some help from Nancy. Could you join me over here and the representatives that joined you here today? Adam, would you like them over here too as well?
No, I'll just...
You just want to hang from afar? Okay. And hold on, I'm almost there. Anybody else? Mayor Pendergast, could you join us here for a moment, please? So the three of us have been participating in some activities recently, and Nancy's going to be our leader today in making an announcement.
Yes, we, on behalf of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, we are here today to bestow an award and an honor that each of the three of us have been the recipient of in the past. And this is really a distinguished honor, because it goes to someone who is committed to the public service in our community, being there with their whole heart and soul, and committed there, present for people, steady, caring, and present in every situation where the person might be needed, but really representing public service at its highest level. And that is really quite an honor, and I know it was when I received it, as well as Michael and Dave. And we're here today to present that award to, what? Oh. Okay. We're here to announce the award winner of that, and I'm going to let you do it because I don't know what you were saying to me.
It's Mayor Ralph Rubio.
Yay!
What everyone was saying, you're public official, Ruth Breland, Public Official of the Year recipient for this year. And we had several nominees, and you were always at the top. And I've had experience in what you do and how you're concerned about not just your city, but the region, and it really stand for that. We thought unanimously that you should be the selection this year, and I'm proud of that. Proud of you.
Whoa. Yeah, I guess it's going to be bestowed upon you. It isn't yet to be done, and that will happen at the awards dinner. So it'll be quite a wonderful opportunity to honor you, Ralph.
Right. So, Chair O'Connell, that's the end of that recognition, and I'll come back in a moment. Adam Joseph wanted to do a quick photo with Ralph.
This may be the first meeting where the announcements take longer than the whole meeting.
He is dreaming.
Remember that later today, okay?
I think Dave Potter needs to join this. If I'm just looking across the room. Oh, that would be great.
I wasn't going to say anything. There never was a photo op he missed, you know. So.
Can I say something very quick? Let the record show that Kristen Clark is sitting in place of and an improvement over board member Edelin. I'll pay for that later. Ralph, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody involved in that nomination and election. I'm just totally blown away here. I had no idea, but it's been a real pleasure and an honor to serve this community in whatever capacity that has been asked of me. When I first ran for city council, I was a reluctant candidate. My predecessor, Jerry Smith, cajoled me into running for city council. I had never any intention to do any public official stuff. I was very happy being a public volunteer, but everything I've done has been for the love of my community and for the region, and I will continue to do that to the best of my ability and with the highest regard for all my colleagues. And I thank all my colleagues for their forbearance and indulgence in my cranky ways at times, but I think that we get a lot of good work done here, working together, and I want to thank my city council, my city managers, and all of them for the support, and most importantly, my wife for supporting me throughout this whole journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. We're still under acknowledgments and announcements. Believe it or not, we'll have a presentation by President Ochoa relating to the CSUMB roundabout project.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to I wanted to introduce this item. We plan to begin construction on a roundabout on 8th Avenue and Inter-Garrison Road. There is a portion of the construction site that is on property still under FORA-led Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement remediation program, and that portion requires unexploded ordnance training and construction oversight. And we would like to enter into a reimbursement agreement with FORA for Arcadis to provide these construction support services. And if you have any questions about this item, Stan Cook stands ready to provide more details.
Thank you. Any member of the board have any questions? Michael?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Chair, that those reimbursement agreements the board has authorized in the past, and as long as the cost stays below $25,000, it will not come back here. But if it does go higher than that, it'll have to come back here for approval.
Thank you. Anyone in the public have any comments on that or anything? Seeing none, close public, and we will go to the consent agenda. There are 7A, it's approved the January 8, 2016 board meeting minutes. B is receive industrial hygienist contract. C is economic and planning systems contract amendment number 10. Next is the Intercity Fund International Contract Amendment number 7, and then the Chair's 2016 committee appointments. There's one change that I want to make to that. Board Member Hoffa has indicated that he is unable to make the PRAC meetings, so he's going to withdraw from that, and I have requested, and he has agreed to become part of the Finance Committee. Other than that, the appointments as set forth in your board packet is accurate. Are there any questions relating to any of the consent items from the board? Anyone in the public? Seeing none, we'll close public. We'll bring it back for a vote. Could I have a motion, please? So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded, moved by Mayor Rubio, the award-winning Mayor Rubio, and Board Member Oglesby. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. I'm sorry, what? Okay, thank you very much. There's one abstention on the minutes from the mayor of Pacific Grove. Have you ever won the award, Mr. Kemp? No? We'll work on that. Okay, we're going to business items number 8A, Fort Ord Reuse Authority Prevailing Wage Program. It's an information and action item. Michael, if you would, and then I believe Mr. Norris will proceed.
Yes, as Robert is moving his way towards the podium, I'll just point out that today we're asking for the board to approve the deferred board action with respect to adopting the Prevailing Wage Compliance Program Option A. And I think if the board members will reflect back on this, that was the item that was before the board when the board made a choice to first refer this item to the Finance Committee with respect to funding issues. And we are now able to do a slight revision in Option A, and the last action taken by the board, Option A would have been up to $250,000. Mr. Norris, working with Ivana Bednarek and with others in this regard, have figured out that the same kind of programming can be done for up to $200,000 on an annual basis. And the Finance Committee, as you might see, they did review this, but they did not consider it with respect to funding, just with respect to availability.
I would like to start by just reviewing the general definition of prevailing wage. Includes the benefits and direct pay, overtime to the largest group, laborers and mechanics, tradesmen within a particular region. Prevailing wage rate law is based upon the premise that government is a major public client in the local economy and should use its economic buying power to provide adequate wages. As Michael has gone over, the January action, the board approved the master resolution amendment requiring contractors to register with DIR per the provisions of SB 854, and directed staff to survey jurisdictions regarding their responsibility for monitoring and enforcement, and defer board action on the recommended option A until it was reviewed by the Finance Committee and further direction on what would be a deliverable, and also the source of funding for the program and how the funds would be spent. Finance Committee performed the review as a component of the mid-year budget review and noted that the proposed funding source for receipt of property tax payments appeared to be sufficient to meet the anticipated prevailing wage enforcement costs. The committee did not, and I hope you note the bold underline, make a recommendation to the board as to whether or not to proceed with the prevailing wage enforcement. This chart, I apologize, sometimes it looks better when you're preparing it, and I hope you can see option A, and it is a part of your board packet describing the basic elements of option A. We summarize it with a mix of staff and consultant monitors, and it is a part of the master resolution amendment. The cost is based on an estimated 80-hour work week and the number of projects that are currently in the CIP pipeline. The selection period could be up to 2 months, although I remind the board that in September 11th of last year, the board approved an action to piggyback on the county's approved list of prevailing wage enforcement monitors. And so that list is comprised of 5 service providers that we would attempt to deal with and putting them into service. The duration, the maximum duration from estimates is if we have a lot of activity up to 5 years. What can happen, though, is that in the program that we're providing to support the jurisdictions, in my previous experience in working with the I-105 freeway and other places where they have prevailing wage enforcement, the area, the players, the contractors, the subs, the jurisdictions can get up to speed in a year or 2 at the most. But sometimes if you have a lot of misunderstandings, some points of frictions, it can extend out. Flexibility would be addressed in the contract. We would try to tailor those services to supporting the individual needs of the jurisdictions, but I would just say overall, what usually happens is that, as we've proposed it, is that there would be an effort to provide orientation and training to all the parties, the awarding agencies, the jurisdiction, the monitoring agencies, the contractors and subs, that they would attend either mandatory pre-bid and pre-award conferences in which you would go over the elements of the contract reporting and monitoring. You would demonstrate how the monitoring software interfaces with all existing construction contracting software, so nobody has to get a new program. You can submit your documents into the monitoring system from almost anywhere using the internet. And then long-term, we know that the FORA responsibility ends in outlying in 2020. But that describes in broad strokes option A. As far as budget, these are the basic numbers that we're working with. We're looking at one staff position, and the main reason that we didn't go with a contractor in the staff position is to avoid conflict of interest. Most of the top drawer service providers have multiple clients, and so we want at least the FORA point of contact to be someone that, while they may be a short-term employee, they are not within the business operations of the top monitors. And the top monitoring vendors have almost 150 or 200 or more clients up and down the state. So, you know, that's the reason why we would have that. It's $500 per project per month. You know, sometimes you wish you did keep your computer science major, but what this does is that you have it for every contractor, subcontractor on the job. And it's estimated that it'll be 3 or 4 projects, and it also reflects whatever cost it takes to interface the jurisdictions and the contractors, subcontractors, and so forth with the system. The consultant contract services is an up to amount, depending upon how they're deployed. That's the top side number. If we, you know, most of the projects that are starting to heat up now come online, we could be fully TO'd out. But if they don't, we'll just use it up to the amount that is drawn down. Per the labor code, it's significant that all contractors are required to keep the accurate records. This can be a problem if you have a small business that has never worked in prevailing wage, and so providing support to them will prevent them from getting into trouble, because if they turn in an inaccurate report, then they could be subject to sanctions of the difference in pay plus a fine per worker per day. And avoiding that is a benefit not only to the local agency and the workers, but to the contractors themselves. Definitions. It's very complicated, but it can also be very simple. Once you go through the drill, you know what forms you need to document your compliance. And, you know, once it's set up, you're prepared. And that's the definition, record-keeping definitions. And inspection. A key point of the system is being able to identify a local place where the awarding agency, members of the public can get access to the appropriate information. The information, let me go back. FORA is the enforcement agency for contracts which we let ourselves. The member jurisdiction is responsible for all other contract enforcement. During construction, contractors submit monthly certified payroll, and for that of their labor force and each subcontractor. You get the number of workers that are certified payroll to ensure compliance with the prevailing wage rates, and the failure to meet the obligation can be addressed in a number of ways. In the trainings that I've undergone, they always shoot for the lowest level of resolution. If we do these things on the front end before they go up to DIR, they can be corrected. People can say, oops, this is an administrative error, we can make the adjustment. If they get to DIR, then they have a higher enforcement, and it can be the difference plus a fine per worker per day. And in some cases, it could put some of the smaller businesses, you know, out of business, or it could end up with workers having to go through a long period of time before the corrections are made. The support, again, is software, system software for training for electronic certified payroll reporting. It's an automated process for timely submissions and reviews to resolve, you know, problems ranging from documentation to complaint resolution. And we're proposing to provide a FORA point of contact for the jurisdictions, contractors, and workers. The system benefits the submission of the certified payroll, again, via the internet almost anywhere. You can submit it, the storage of the prevailing wage rates so that you don't have to devote a lot of staff time into trying to do these calcs. The rates are available and you can follow through. The ability, again, to email notification of non-compliance or the need for corrective action before anything is transmitted to an enforcement agency such as DIR. And the standard and customized payroll reporting, it's, for instance, if we wanted to know how many people from a certain trade are working on a job and what their basis is, you know, whether they're local or whether they're from out of the area, for instance, for those who are interested in local hire issues. Preparation for the future. HUD is already mandating electronic submission of certified payroll reporting on their projects beginning, using the Elation software beginning March 31st of this year. This will bring our area and contractors and workers up to speed on a process that is coming down the pipe. And awarding agencies, enforcement agencies access the system through a web-based portal or door that they would have their own secure passwords. Reports generated can be made available at a designated location with worker personal information redacted when provided to unauthorized parties who don't need to get all of the personal information of a worker, and it can be aggregated according to the access levels determined by the system's administrators. Some reference documents, and that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Is there any questions by any board member? Board member Morton.
So, thank you for this, and I think the intention that we're all trying to achieve to make sure that we are paying prevailing wage is good intention, and I'm very grateful. My boss here has it. My assistant. Thank you. So, but what my concern is that every slide in your presentation and the review of the legislation to which you're referring, Labor Code 1776, specifically limits access to the information to the awarding party. So I'm trying to understand, is FORA trying to assist? I get, and I think this is excellent, if we are the awarding party in a public works contract. So my first question is, are we limiting this to projects in which FORA is the awarding party?
No, we
Okay.
are attempting to also assist the jurisdictions, and we have specifically written to the jurisdictions about how this kind of additional FORA involvement could help. And we have received quite a bit of information back from the county. We've received some information back from Marina. We received thank you, but we're okay from Delray Oaks. I think the city of Seaside said the software would be helpful, but they thought they could do most everything else on their own. But I'm not sure if that's the final answer.
No, that's a good answer, and because to us, and then now as a city I'm asking, is that if Marina is the awarding party, what you're offering to my city in a public works contract, as Marina being the awarding party, that we would be able to access you and utilize your software as if we owned it. We would be a licensed person.
That's the idea.
Okay. So is that the extent of what we're doing, or are we also trying to monitor when it's a project, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but the dunes versus the dunes and they award a contract, or Scott Negri and his project awards a contract, we're not touching those. Is that correct?
Well, the Dunes project is already under a court order on meeting
just
prevailing
hypothetically
wage.
in a private-
So if it was something outside of the Dunes, like Promontory 2, it stands on its own. The Fort Ord Reuse Authority requires it. The jurisdiction has to monitor it. This would also, the software and any assistance we could provide are made available.
So my follow-up...
We would not be the awarding entity, though.
Right. That's my question. So if we're trying to enforce, I'm asking, how are we reconciling this with Government Code 1776, which only allows the payrolls to be released to the representative of the body awarding the contract, or obviously the labor issue? So is FORA going to become a party to every contract that we want to monitor? Because I think we have litigation, I mean, I think we expose ourselves to
I agree.
liability questions.
I
So I'm
agree.
trying to figure out how we're reconciling this with the labor code.
I think we're going to have to redact private information that's not allowed to come into FORA's hands.
But we're not even able to request it. The slide, go back a couple slides, you see there that it says it can be requested by the awarding party, the enforcing party, which is the DIR, or the other party to the contract. And I'm trying to figure out if we're spending money for something we can't really do.
That's a totally legitimate question, and
What usually happens in practice is that members of the public can ask for certain levels of information from the payrolls. That is what we're supporting the production of. And if someone has a complaint in practice, what happens is they may go to their representative, their union representative, and they'll say, where can I go and get the certified payrolls? Or take a look at them. And I have a release from my member, my client, that says that I can have full access to their information. They would get the information if FORA, as a member of the public, we could just ask, what is the count on timely submission of certified payrolls, period. We wouldn't get the specific one. We could say, we've received X reports on this project. And that would be the total, unless someone brought a complaint to FORA that the information was inaccurate. And then we would ask the jurisdiction to respond.
So as to a jurisdiction, awarding jurisdiction, public works project, city of Marina, I can see how that would work. But I'm asking you how we get payroll when FORA is not the awarding party or Marina is not an awarding party. So for example, the promontory, the contracts were, I don't know Mr. Moon's contract company name, but it was Mr. Moon and some subcontractor. As Marina, we're not able to access the certified payroll because we're not a party. We're not the awarding party. It's not a public works contract. So I'm still don't see how FORA would be able to access. And I get that the public can ask, but they have to ask through the awarding party. So I still see an impediment to doing what we're trying to achieve. I don't think this is the answer, unless you can tell me how we get around that. And I'm still not hearing an answer.
Yeah. From a legal point of view, I can answer. A more practical point of view, Robert can probably answer. So,
may I try to kind of answer this?
Let me do it with the council, and then Robin, and then Mayor Rubio. Did you want to go further?
we are not an awarding agency. We don't have the authority to get that information. So that's where it's at.
Right, and that's my concern, why we're paying for all of this software and people when we don't have anything to analyze. Thank you. Thank you.
Robert, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, as leading the initiative, one of the things that I was responding to when making this proposal is to support. There were concerns about uneven compliance and enforcement and what help could be provided to the jurisdictions to assist them in their role. And that's what, this proposal seeks to do. It doesn't seek to take their place in it, but it provides a basis for reinforcing a uniform compliance operation across the jurisdictions. FORA's other legal issues I leave to authority counsel, but if you wanted to have a uniform central information system, this is, to my research, the best support that could be provided to the jurisdictions so that they could fulfill their responsibilities, because part of the responses that I've received is that there's often not enough resources or timely availability of resources, and there's some holes, particularly in providing a uniform orientation to not only the workers, but to contractors and subcontractors bidding on the work. and a couple of them have expressed an interest in having a general overview, pre-bid and pre-award as to, how the system operates, because they've never operated in a prevailing wage environment before.
Mayor Rubio?
My understanding of the way this works is that subcontractors report their certified payrolls to the prime contractor. The prime contractor is responsible for collecting it and verifying all the work that is done under their contracts. Now, FORA's ability to access those records lies in recognizing that FORA is the compliance officer. Once that becomes the case, then FORA is able to access. Whether or not it's a subcontractor, one of the consultants outlined in the program, if they're the contract compliance of record, then they receive those records. If it's FORA, the FORA staff with a mix of those consultants, then FORA has the ability to access those records.
So my follow-up to that is, that would be true if FORA was the awarding agency.
No. If
FORA has to be the awarding agency for its contracts and its subcontract, as I read the labor code.
That's what the law says.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
However, I think what Robert has pointed out to us, that there is a function that FORA is trying to accomplish by its program.
Right. If Marina's awarding agency, what this program, Robert, what you're suggesting is that I can have my city staff, if we, in our public works project, have the support of FORA helping us to look at any public works project on the former Fort Ord, that there's a payroll program that will analyze the payroll and collect the payroll when Marina is the awarding agency. So this is FORA supporting Marina. I absolutely understand that. And I thank you for that, but I'm not sure, unless we have every city doing it, if that's what we want to pay for.
Board Member Phillips, please.
Follow up on that a little bit, Robert. We have a number of jurisdictions, county and city, and some of them, like Delray Oaks and the county, said, hey, we're dealing with the prevailing wage issue. We don't need any help. What's going to be our relation to those agencies? Are we going to go in and look to see if they're doing it right, yeah, and that's, what is our relation with them? Are we only going to deal with the agencies that said we're not equipped to deal with the prevailing wage?
In talking with the staff, although most of the agencies, particularly at the county and other places, say that they think they have a handle on it, they also at the same time say that they could see the benefit of having a standardized orientation and standardized understanding of how prevailing wages work for all of the contractors bidding or operating on Fort Ord. And so, for instance, if we show them, like they do in, the city of San Francisco, in all of their public works contracts, they have like maybe 8 sessions a year, or per the award of a contract, they'll have special orientation and training for any new contractors coming in to bid for the first time in that arena. And no matter what everybody's doing individually, they've all kind of said, we think we got a handle on it, but this would be a plus for us if we had that tool available and it was a standardized system. Let's say I have a half of an analyst devoted to prevailing wage contract administration. If I knew that there was, like FORA was hosting a training and orientation session that was going to involve City of Marina, and we have a project that'll be following on maybe a couple months after, I may channel, my folks to attend that overview and orientation to the system, and then we would jointly benefit from it.
Any other board member questions? Michael, do you want, before I go to the public, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Chair, I just think it's important to note that there continues to be a lot of communication to the board, and we would be remiss if we didn't point out that We've had letters from the Labor Council. We've had letters from individual attorneys from different labor organizations. We've had a number of letters from Jane Haynes. She was not able to be here today, but did forward a letter as well. And just wanted to make sure you were clear about that, and that we continue to communicate back and forth with the Department of Industrial Relations. They've been sending beginning to understand better what the circumstances are, and they probably will get us sometime in the next couple of weeks a more firm response than the sort of rambling response we got a few months ago.
And for the record, this, although it was in front of the board in December and January, it will be a first vote because the previous actions were to defer it twice. So it will be a first vote on this matter, which requires unanimous if it is not to come back in March. We'll now go to the public. Is there anyone in the public who desires to make a comment relating to this item?
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, members of the board. David Spar, Director of Economic Development, Housing, and Workforce for the County of Monterey. It's a very serious issue, and it wouldn't be before your board if it wasn't a serious issue. We had a review, not an audit, from the department this last year, 2015, in regards to community development block grant issuance and compliance with prevailing wages. The issue was in sending out an RFP, we were to print out the prevailing wage the day before that RFP is to be released and share those exact wage numbers with all potential applicants who would be responding to that RFP. So you have to connect your wages to that, otherwise they can come back and you can be liable for having to repay those wages. Having somebody be a compliance monitor or officer just to give us a heads up on the changes with the Department of Labor in this issue would be extremely helpful. Help us prevent repaying wages or catching up. Everybody wants to be compliant, but knowing how to be compliant isn't always that transparent. We do manage this issue now very well for all of our community development block grants that we issue with the various communities and the various projects. But this is any project that comes into the county that might touch FORA or the prevailing wages. You must be compliant, and you must have access to a compliant officer in case you're requested as a public agency to provide this information. Sometimes that can take us about 20 hours of staff time just to get caught up and get prepared to answer that question. So I would take this program extremely seriously and look at the benefits that it could provide long-term for all jurisdictions, all contracts, and all funds. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't indicate, but fortunately he was less than 3 minutes, but each person who speaks has up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair O'Connell and members of the board. Wendy Elliott with Marina Community Partners. I have a question. As Mr. Hulamard mentioned, Marina Community Partners, the developer of Marina Heights, and the City of Marina are parties to a settlement agreement with the Building and Trades Council on this prevailing wage issue, and we would ask that Authority Council opine on the interface of this proposed program with the terms of that settlement agreement so that there is no overlap or conflict. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Levon Stone. I'm the Executive Director of the Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network, and this is Environmental Justice Month. It's been recognized by the President of the United States and also by the County of Monterey, and I thank them for doing that. My concern representing the local low-income community is whether or not we're talking about having a project that comprises all of Monterey County and not just building contractors who come into the community. I'm concerned that I don't hear any other language that's being presented today that will also include the local community with these jobs and with job training and with access. And as the FORA Environmental Justice Network, I want to know how we are involved in this process and also the inclusion of environmental justice. Now, if that is not included, then we don't have a process that will be fair and just and have equal access.
Thank you.
Ron Cheshire, Monterey Santa Cruz Building Construction Trades Council. FORA has already voted to accept the recommendation by staff in regards to the program, but the issue of financing has been held up. And now we're having questions coming in, raising doubts within individuals' minds as to whether they can do certain things. FORA requires prevailing wages. FORA requires compliance by the jurisdictions, some of which tend to ignore their responsibilities and have been told about it in a letter, but yet want to sit here and tell this group that, gee whiz, we can't do this. FORA, if a violation is brought forward to the jurisdiction can go ahead and they can check out what kind of underwear the subcontractor's wearing if they want. If the jurisdiction won't do it, FORA can do it. I can get those certified payrolls if I want them. Any individual in this community can get them. They're supposed to get them within 10 days, not the 9 months or more that it took to get the ones from a certain city just over here. They're okay. I think we're in their jurisdiction right now. This is a very important issue, folks. There is so much cheating going on out at construction sites within the Fort Ord Reuse Authority jurisdiction at this time. The vision that was once created by the first board members at FORA, the opportunities that have been lost to business and workers, the workers that are being cheated. We've brought this to you for a long time. This issue's been before you for more than a year. We hope that you can move forward with it. FORA is offering a cooperative effort to assist. And I guarantee you, there are some jurisdictions certainly need that assistance. So again, we support staff recommendation and what Mr. Norris has presented to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back. There were questions. There was a question from Wendy of Marina Community Partners relating to the litigation and the settlement agreement. Authority Council, have you had an opportunity to consider that? And if so, can you address it now or do you need more time?
I have not considered it. I will look at it and be happy to address the board on it next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Stone also had a question or two. Michael, would you like to address those, please?
I think that the gist of the question from Evangelist Stone had to do with where is environmental justice included in the process and how will the community be served in this particular regard. In some ways, those particular questions are not directly tied to the requirement of prevailing wage, but I do want to make it clear that when the board made the decision about prevailing wage, now 20 years ago, there were a large number of folks from the local African American and Latino community that spoke quite eloquently in favor of prevailing wage on the former Fort Ord. And I think the board at that time took that into consideration, and I've not heard this board seek to try to reverse that. So I assume that that part of it, the community input, and with respect to environmental justice, there has been input, and that's in fact one of the reasons that prevailing wage has been the policy of this board. I do think that in each of these projects, we make a public disclosure in every case. In every project that comes before this board for consistency determination, there's a specific requirement to meet obligations of balancing housing and development and making sure that people are paying prevailing wage. In fact, there's an item on the agenda today that specifically lists those kinds of things. So I would say that environmental justice is considered in each of these, and I think Ms. Stone has eloquently expressed her questions on this in the past, and I'd be happy to continue to meet with her on the subject.
Thank you. Ms. Stone, we'll make note of your comment just now. I know Mr. Hulamar heard it, even though it probably was not picked up by the video. I will now entertain a motion on this matter.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the prevailing wage compliance program option A and provide the sufficient funding up to $200,000.
And I'd like to second that, and I have a question for the executive director, if that's okay.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Rubio and seconded by Board Member Hoffa.
So just for clarity's sake, if there were a prevailing wage project in any of the jurisdictions in the FORA area, Salinas, Monterey, Pacific Grove, but it were not on the former Fort Ord, would they have access to these services, or would those services, that is the database and the staff support, be only for projects on the former Fort Ord?
Well, I would have to say that the database would definitely be restricted to just FORA. I think what we're paying for in that regard. I think having a qualified person who is regularly involved with this support and has the orientation, has the background, is doing the consistent research and is keeping up with all of the changes would be made available to anyone.
Okay, so that would be a resource that all of the jurisdictions could avail themselves of, the staff persons.
The FORA membership, yes.
Thank you.
Any comments on the motion of the second? Board Member Beach.
Thank you. So just to, again, to clarify for us, given the, sounds like a slight, it may be a very technical point, our lawyer says that there's, and agrees with Gail Morton, that there's some access issue, but our staff tells us that actually through some mechanism, whether it's the appointment of a compliance officer or some other perhaps signing on agreement when the project begins, that legal matter can be overridden so that there is a way to get access and have a compliance. So this is, I just want to reconcile that and make sure that we really do have a way to utilize this, because it seems to me like it's a very good thing. But the technical piece of the law, we're being told by the staff, is overridable with cooperation, or what is the principle? That
I don't think that's what the staff is telling you.
Okay, what is the staff telling us about how this
If the
works?
staff would like to reiterate, I'd be happy to hear it, but I'm saying that FORA is not an awarding agency.
Right.
And as such, it is limited in the proprietary information that is normally collected in these prevailing wage compliance
But the
situations.
staff feels we can get it anyway.
See, I'm not sure I'm hearing
We're
that.
not sure we're hearing that?
This is the time for comments. I have a feeling this will not be unanimous. Board Member, mindset. Board Member Norris, do you want to briefly make a comment before we take the vote?
Staff member?
Board Member, I apologize. Well, actually, that's, okay. Haven't figured that one out. Mr. Norris.
There's a related section, I think 1812 is records of hours of employment inspection. It's under the Division of Labor and Standards. It briefly reads that every contractor and sub shall keep hours, accurate records showing the name worked. The record shall be kept open at reasonable hours to the inspection of the awarding body in a Division of Labor Standards. And so if within that, they also recognize that if there are labor representatives, if you have like a labor enforcement committee on the project or in the region, they also would have access to that information. That's all that my comment was, is that generally it's limited to the awarding body, but in other sections of the law, particularly under wage and hour, you can have inspection rights by other parties other than the awarding agency.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Let's call for the vote on this at this point. This is not going to be unanimous, so that I would appreciate it very much if you would submit your questions between now and the March meeting so we can get them answered if you have more questions. On the motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, it's two, excuse me 1 second. 2 no votes, Board Member Phillips and Board Member Morton, and who else? And Board Member Kemp. Let's move forward. Again, if you have questions on this, please submit your questions before the March meeting.
Mr. Chair, when it comes back in March, if someone like myself wanted to make a comment and possible direction, would that be possible?
Yes. We'll now move on to B, Fort Ord Reuse Authority Fiscal Year 2015-16 mid-year budget. Usually this comes to the Executive Committee before it comes to the Board. It did not this time due to illness of two of the Board members, and one of them was sitting on a beach somewhere in Thailand, so he's probably still there. So as a result, it's before you without the recommendation of the Executive Committee, and I think it'll start off with Michael and then Ivana. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, Chair O'Connell and members of the board, each and every year the board considers a budget in the springtime, usually adopting it in the month of May or June. We typically wind up taking actions during the first part of the fiscal year that wind up making adjustments to the mid-year budget. This particular year, we were successful in closing escrow on the Preston Park project, which had an impact on the budget, and we had a few other actions by the board that made adjustments. And so this FY 2015-16 mid-year budget is a review of those actions. Next slide. This slide is only shown to remind you that you have this in your packet and all of you reviewed each and every line of it. And I'm going to go to the next slide, which is a summary of this, but you have that full detail plus there's additional backup materials on each of the lines. But in summary, the budget looks like this. The recommendation we're making would look like this. So there, we had some major impact by the Preston Park escrow closure that affected us in increased revenues in this year. They were originally projected to be in last year's budget, so they're now reflected in this budget since we closed in September. Expenditures, there's a slight increase in expenditures as well, because in this year unanticipated was the closeout of the loan at Preston Park. Those were the major affecting items that had to do with our budget. So our ending fund balance is now projected to be quite a bit higher than it was before. And I think this page gives you a fairly discrete description of what that is. We had a couple of other items, more minor items that happened that changed the budget. One was that we did not get the EDA grant that had been submitted and was under consideration. It was a relatively small grant to do some business-related planning and some of the industrial hygienist work on the building removal. It was only, we think, probably in the $200,000 to $225,000. They were considering that. So that is a slight reduction from our program as well. Also, since we were able to close Preston Park and have the funds available to do building removal, there's no need to take a loan and pay the interest on money when we have those funds available for building removal. So those are the major factors that change the budget. Next slide. So there's in this budget items that are included on the last related to the prevailing wage item that's included that have to do with the cost, that $200,000 item. If that were to proceed forward, it would mean about $76,000 in this calendar year, because there's only going to be probably 4 months of that in this fiscal year, excuse me, not calendar, fiscal year. And we note there again that the property tax is where we would pull those resources from. So that expense is not included in the mid-year budget. We're just highlighting that for you so you know. Next slide. So we're requesting today that the board approve additional expenditures for FY 15-16. Part of that has to do with an increase in the employer contribution for health insurance. I think a couple of you are fully aware that the PERS has really kicked up the cost for its PERS Choice program. We have some families that are on Fort Ord staff members that have increases in multiple hundreds of dollars a month in their health insurance as a consequence, and retention of our staff is important to us. We think having an increase, not 100% increase in what was PERS's raise, but a portion of that would be covered. There's the $10,000 for an independent HR consultant. It's been 5 years since we've done a salary survey. It tells us whether we were up and down. In 2011, it told us that 3 of our positions were at the proper point or slightly higher, and the other 9 that year were way below. We think we've kept up, but it is timely every 5 years to do that sort of update. And then in terms of administrative expenses, we have a budget item change that would allow us, now that FORA's transition is 4 years, 4 months, and a few days away, we want to make sure that how we archive all of our information and how that's made available for any successor agency or agencies, whatever the board's eventual conclusion is, are fully accessible, researchable, and discoverable, whatever. And then finally, that it's interesting that I was just going to talk about Authority Council and went blank, didn't it? So there's a $40,000 budget increase, and that primarily relates to the extension of the Preston Park sale negotiations and the settlement agreement work. So the recommendation today is for the FORA board to consider adopting the 2015-16 mid-year budget. Ivana Bednarik is available if you have some specific questions, and I can respond as well.
Thank you very much, Michael. Does any board member have any questions relating to this item?
I'd like to make a motion.
Let me go out to the public first.
Okay.
I don't see any from the board. Let's go to the public. Any member of the public have any questions or comments relating to this particular item?
A comment, I'll make a, public has.
I thought I heard that there was a budget for the removal of the buildings on Fort Ord. If that is what I heard, I'm interested in knowing exactly what that budget is and what is the timeline for the removal of those buildings and how will it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Seeing no closed public comment, Ms. Stone, I think, was asking if, in fact, the removal of certain buildings is within the budget, and if so, what is the timeline for those?
Yes, Chair, we have...
And amount.
Chair, answers to all of those questions were made available to the Administrative Committee. We've had 2 public disclosures of the schedule, the amount that current FORA obligation is for building removal. The City of Seaside has asked that we come back and discuss that item. It will be a part of the capital improvement program this year, and within a few months you'll be seeing all of that. We can provide Ms. Stone copies of all of the information we provided to the Administrative Committee in the meantime so that she's updated.
When would the capital improvements be coming to the board?
The
60 days?
The administrative committee is already looking at and considering the capital improvement program with the projections that feed that. It'll also be going to the finance committee after the administrative and the capital improvement program committees consider it. It'll be back at the board for its initial presentation in May. Typically, we once in a while, not only comes in May, but it gets approved in May, but initially in May and then approval in June.
Thank you. Do I have a motion from any board member?
Yes.
Board Member Morton.
Yes, I would like to move approval of the mid-year budget, excluding any action on the additional items, which I would like to entertain as a second motion. Simply to approve the mid-year budget, which does not include any allocation for prevailing wage or any of the salary adjustments. Finance Committee did not consider those. We never reviewed them, discussed them. So I'm just making a motion for approval of the mid-year budget, which does not include any of those additional costs.
Could you please, someone on the staff, put up those additional costs that we're referring to on the screen again? Would that be possible? And we don't have a second yet, so is there anyone willing to, or wanting to make a second to that motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, it's been seconded for discussion. Let's very quickly, just so we make sure we have an understanding of what we're excluding from this motion. Are those the items you're referring to, the request for board action numbers?
Yes,
one?
my motion is to approve slide 2.
So your motion is the number 2 on there, to adopt the board but disregard 1A through D.
I'd like those treated as separate motion that the board identifies and can decide.
Okay, I understand. So right now it's to adopt the budget 2015-16 as stated in number 2 only, disregarding number 1 and the sub-portions to it. Any discussion on the motion? There's one question. Yes, go ahead.
So
Board
just to
Member
clarify,
Parker.
so what you're proposing, Councilmember Morton, is to adopt the budget, but have the other actions be a separate motion
Right
that
now.
someone might propose.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Seen? Yes. Board Member
I
Hopper.
guess, to me, it seems like the requested additional expenses are not that major. So I'm just wondering why not just vote on this and complete this instead of having to, I don't know. I would prefer if we just approve the staff recommendation. I'm wondering why we're that worried about what amounts to $70,000.
Is that a substitute motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we approve the staff recommendation.
Okay, so the motion by Board Member Hoffer is to approve the budget, including the items on the screen, 1A, B, C, and D, and all of number 2, and it's been seconded by Board Member Gunter. Any comments on the substitute motion? Well,
I would like to make just a comment.
Sure.
The reason that I was breaking it out is the Finance Committee is charged with reviewing the budget. And the point that I am making is, as the chair of the Finance Committee, we reviewed the slide very carefully, went over what the mid-year budget was. That is a static document mid-year of what exists. The Finance Committee, and I appreciate that your motion said staff's recommendations for these additional charges. I just saw those as 2 separate items, and I was looking for the record to reflect what your Finance Committee brought to you as a mid-year budget is in slide number 2. What staff is bringing forward is additional charges to add to our ongoing budget. So I see them as 2 different items coming from 2 different sources. That was the sole reason for the motion, not that I'm against these additional charges. It's just I see a procedural record that's more accurate. So thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like to clarify, all those items, A through D, were included in the mid-year budget reviewed by the Finance Committee. Those are not additional added expenses that were included. But A and B deal with benefits and salaries, which are recommended to the board by the executive committee, and that didn't happen. The executive committee didn't have chance to review any staffing, salaries, or salary review expenses. But the admin, record archiving, and the authorities council's budget increase was included in they were all included, but they were part of the finance committee review.
Thank you. So
Then
we have a
have to save
motion.
them.
They were there.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the budget, mid-year budget, as stated in number 2 above, and we have a substitute motion by Board Member Hofford that's also been seconded to approve the entire 15-16 mid-year budget, including items 1A through D. So we'll vote on the substitute motion first. All in favor of the substitute motion? Yes, please.
Could you, Chair, could you please explain the process by which the substitute motion overrides the primary motion on the floor?
My understanding from being on the city council for 8 years is that's the procedure that's always followed. I could not give you an exact point as to what the reason for that is. Maybe authority council, although it probably has to be researched, but it's always been the case.
The processes we're following is appropriate in my experience. I haven't researched it recently, and I can, but a substitute motion is a substitute motion and should be addressed before the original motion.
So if someone were to make a substitute motion, which sent this all back to the executive committee, that would be interesting as well. So let's take a vote. Let's take a vote on the substitute motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that's a no meaning? Okay. Board Member Camp has voted aye no, which it'll come back for a second vote in March. The motion itself, the first one by Board Member Morton, will not be addressed because the substitute motion did pass, although not unanimous. Thank you. Going on to the next item, water augmentation program. It's the three-party planning report. Mr. Hulemard.
Yes, Chair O'Connell, members of the board, this three-party planning undertaking is something that we reported to the board in the past. We have been working very closely with the Monterey Region Water Pollution Control Agency and the Marina Coast Water District to come forward and move the process for support of augmenting the water supply in the former Fort Ord. Initially, we thought that this would be important to highlight for the board members why we need more than just 2 parties. We already have an agreement with MCWD for water augmentation, but in this particular case, we wanted to look at how the Pure Water Project and how working together we might be able to mitigate the heavy costs of the infrastructure that would have to support the water program. So the three-party planning really does result in a substantial cost. In this case, the Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency has rights to a certain amount of water. MCWD has both facilities and a plan that was approved, and the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, if it chooses to do so, has mitigation dollars for helping to supply an augmented source for the former Fort Ord. Peter? So what the Water Pollution Control Agency is going to have to do with the California Public Utilities Commission is to move forward with a project called Pure Water. The negotiations, the term mostly concluded. When it's ever a water issue, the term mostly may not be as firm as it might be in other, but I think ready for recommendations and actions, and I do believe since PCA does have to get to the Public Utilities Commission with a firm item, it's important for us to move ahead now. The PCA board, in fact, has in their product conveyance facilities part of the project a pipeline that would have to deliver the water. The FORA board has already endorsed the Pure Water Monterey project as a potential supplier of mitigation water. And of course, as you know, the PCA and MCW boards have agreed to terms for advanced treated water supply project agreement. Next slide. So today's action item would be that we would ask that the FORA board support the Pure Water Monterey project in a way that supports their efforts at California Public Utilities Commission to get the project on the road. And with respect to things that are upcoming, our base reuse plan, EIR, estimates that we need about 2,400 acre-feet of water. We want to be clear about that. That's an estimate, and depending on a combination of conservation and this Pure Water project, Whether we ever need to get to any other source is yet to be known, but there are at least 2 or 3 other options for looking at augmenting the supply. Our CIP budget specifically designates water mitigation program funding. As you know, there's some of that funding in this calendar year CIP. And for sure, we know that we are going to be collecting funds until FORA's expiration, currently scheduled for June 30, 2020. So therefore, we are asking that the FORA board in the future think about designating funds to the recycled pipeline that could deliver 1,427 acre-feet and potentially approve funds for a 3-party study of augmented alternatives. So that's the action items once more. Again, that's for today. What we think will be March, which we call pipeline financing commitments. We're not sure exactly what route that's going to take. We're still working very closely with both of our partners in this effort. And then in April, consider an actual memorandum of understanding with a request for proposals to study the alternatives that we've mentioned earlier and how we would meet the remaining obligation for projects on Fort Ord. I think we're going to be assisted at this point, actually led by our colleagues from MCWD for their part of this presentation.
Thank you, Michael, Chairman O'Connell, members of the board, Keith Vandermotten, the General Manager of the Marina Coast Water District. So I just want to give a little bit of a status or info on the recycled RUAP project as well as how that might fit into the Pure Water project. So the RUAP Recycle project is really a project that's been underway for some time. Many years ago, we completed the design and the CEQA and began construction. In fact, about 19,000 linear feet of the pipeline have been installed. And so the project has been underway for some time, and as Michael had talked about, as part of MCWD's obligation to FORA to provide this augmented water source. But what is this water we're talking about? Just to help clarify, this isn't potable water that goes to residents. It isn't even non-potable water that goes to residents. What we're talking about is irrigation water that's going to be used for golf courses, playing fields, landscape, median strips, play fields, and the like. And so really the end users that we're talking about are HOAs that have common areas, golf courses, and the land use jurisdictions. So with the fall off in the development and the demand, the project also had stalled, or at least that was one of the major significant reasons why the project has stalled. But today, as demands are beginning to pick up again, and with the Pure Water Monterey project coming along, there's an opportunity to collaborate and to have a more cost-effective project. And so what we've looked at here is a project where instead of using the tertiary water that was originally envisioned for the RUAP recycled, we would use the advanced treated water. So we're still talking one pipeline and one water. So we're not talking about 2 different water sources going down. We're talking about just advanced treated water in the pipeline. And so that's how we can work together on this, is the one pipeline, one source of water, and that water now would be used for the irrigation purposes. And so with that, it's a cost-effective project compared to the original tertiary project because now we're sharing the cost of the pipeline and the pump station. Some of the treatment costs are a little bit higher, but they're more than offset by the collaboration and shared costs of the pipeline. And so as you see in that graphic at the bottom there. And so the project itself, this is an exhibit showing the pipeline going from the PCA facility all the way down to South Boundary Road there at the bottom. I don't have a pointer, but I'll try to explain it best I can. A majority of the pipeline there is along General Jim Moore Boulevard. A section of that from Normandy south to South Boundary Road has already been installed, and a small section within CSUMB has been installed. The rest of that is envisioned as part of the project moving forward. The dashed lines are all of the laterals that will go out into the community. Those are to be done by MCWD, and those are outside of the project collaboration. I do have a pointer now. Let's see if I can do that. So little section right there has already been installed, and basically from here has been installed. The rest is to yet be installed. And so with that, I will turn it over to Paul Shudo.
Thank you, Keith. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Paul Shudo. I'm the General Manager of Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency. So just a little bit about Pure Water, and I think we've talked about this at a previous board meeting, but it's just a quick update. So the Pure Water Monterey project, as it's stated, will provide advanced treated water. So there's a difference, obviously, between tertiary treated recycled versus advanced treated that we're proposing on this particular project. As you probably well know, the project was envisioned to supply that advanced treated water for injection into the seaside basin, but also in our negotiations with Marina Coast to provide that advanced treated water for their use as well as irrigation water. One of the key points that I think has been a confusing point is that we're not talking two pipelines. We're not talking an advanced treated pipeline and a tertiary pipeline. Tertiary water, although Marina Coast does have rights to it, we're not being utilized in this process. We're talking just the advanced treated in a single pipeline. Because of that, as Keith's earlier slide showed with a little balance thing, there's an economy of scale that makes even this more expensive water, because it's higher treatment quality, to be cost effective for the uses identified here. Come on, where'd it go? So one of the unique parts of this project is the water sources that we're using. Indirect potable reuse, which is what this project is used throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout the world. It's nothing new. However, the unique part of it is the different types of water that we're accepting into PCA's system to ultimately treat through our wastewater treatment plant and then through that advanced water treatment plant. And that includes agricultural wash water. So when we go to the store and we buy the pre-washed bags of lettuce or vegetables, those have been washed. That process generates about 4 million gallons a day. We currently are able to accept that into our treatment plant and recycle that. We're also looking at accepting the water from the Blanco drain and the wreck ditch, which are impaired waterways that flow into the Salinas River. We would be taking a portion of that. There are water rights applications with that Monterey County Water Resources Agency has put into the state to get those waters. And then some portion of stormwater from the city of Salinas, and certainly I think I've spoke in front of a number of your boards saying in the future there may be an opportunity for other waters as well. This is the slide that Keith noted. This is the overlay of the pipeline that we're talking about. So the negotiations that are ongoing between Marina Coast and PCA are to put the terms together where this pipeline is constructed by Marina Coast, PCA contributes the appropriate funding, and we have capacity in that pipeline to convey the treated water to the seaside basin. And these next two slides are just to represent the difference where we were, which is Marina Coast using tertiary water, or what is deemed here recycled water, where PCA is saying, hey, we're going to do advanced treated water into the seaside basin. The need for multiple pipes, multiple infrastructure, not only public disturbance, but tremendous costs of that infrastructure to the public. And ultimately, working out a deal where the advanced treated water will be utilized by Marina Coast for irrigation purposes and frankly is a better source for those irrigation customers, going through a single piece of infrastructure, that pipeline in red that you saw earlier, to the end users. At this point, I think Steve is going to pick it up from here.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Keith, as well. Steve, don't be shy.
I'm usually not shy, but we just have been using kind of graphic representations. We actually decided to show you some real numbers, and obviously they are round numbers, but just gives you a sense of if you're doing two projects, what the cost would be up above, and the benefit of combining these projects. We feel that we can save somewhere in the range of $20 million for the agencies and the region. So it's a big deal, and it's something that is exciting in terms of moving this long-planned project forward into the actual implementation stage. As I said, it saves not only the region money, but the agencies. It's less of an environmental impact to not have multiple trenches that you're digging. And it solves, from the FORA standpoint, 2/3 of the water augmentation mitigation that we've been carrying from our base reuse plan for the last 20 years. So it's extremely significant. The pipeline aspect is essential, obviously, to convey the advanced treated water to Fort Ord. There's been questions about how that would be done, and this is the way in which we accomplish that. And we're not going to get to this particular project that's been described tonight without the California Public Utilities Commission giving a thumbs up. My understanding is that Paul and company will be up before the PUC in April, and so this strengthens their hand receiving a specific endorsement of this nature. And later, next month, we will come back with another discussion about FORA's pipeline financing commitment options, but we're not doing that tonight. Just to reorient you to today's action item is simply to adopt or endorse the attached resolution that endorses the MRW PCA presentation to the State of California Public Utility Commission. Now, we just wanted to give you an overview just so you can see the whole project as a whole. And what we've been talking about tonight is on the left-hand side. It's essentially the recycled component of what we've referred to over the years as the RUAP, Regional Urban Water Augmentation Program. And the featured aspect of that is supply recycled water through a pipeline, and that has certain planning aspects to it, et cetera. So you can see kind of the steps on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're calling the secondary project, which is essentially if the base reuse plan studied 2,400 acre-feet of augmented water, and the board's previous allocation on the recycled side was 1,427 acre-feet. There's still a 973 acre-foot component, which is essentially all of the above planning aspect that we've talked about several times during the last few months before this board. And so we'll be coming back in April with the MOU. There'll be the three-party MOU that will describe some of the elements that are entailed in that, which include hiring someone to do a feasibility analysis, establishing a technical advisory group, establishing the consultant selection committee, and ultimately they would come back with a recommendation to this board, and the FORA board would choose the secondary project, but that will be something that, in essence takes a period of time. So we will kick that part of the process off in April, at least that's the plan, and that just reiterates the timing of it. And we're open to questions as always, and or any comments.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Any board member have any questions? If someone could grab those lights, I'd appreciate it. Board Member Kemp.
Thank you very much. I'm very supportive of the project. I'd just like to confirm that there's sufficient capacity for source water at PCA and production capacity to serve both the regional water project and this particular project. And a nod of the head would give me great confidence. Thank you.
The head has been nodded. Any other questions by any board member? Yes, Board Member Hoffa.
Do we have an estimate of what the per acre foot costs of the water will be, understanding that that might change, but based on this consolidated plan with a consolidated pipeline and the advanced treatment process?
This is a guesstimate, I assume?
An educated guesstimate, but yes, a guesstimate.
Good, thank you.
So just to clarify a little further, there is capacity in our existing facility in reference to the advanced water treatment plant. For the additional water that Marina Coast would require, there would be additional treatment trains added to our existing design, but it is there. And there are water rights defined that Marina Coast has to produce the amount of water that we're talking about. So just to clarify the nod of the head. In reference to costs, right now, obviously, as you well know, there's a number of variables that could change. Having said that, we've done about 20 scenarios, run models for about 20 scenarios. A likely point is for PCA for the Pure Water project, we're looking at about $1,850 an acre foot. Now, from a sensitivity analysis perspective, assuming we get some grants or other things occur, it could go, much below that, up to probably $300 to $500 below that, or it could go a couple $100 above that, depending on the financing money and so on. But generally speaking, that 1850 is the middle ground that we're utilizing. Now, Marina Coast's number is going to be slightly different. I'll let Keith address that. The reason being is we need to inject the water into the Seaside Basin, and there is certainly capital costs and electrical costs to do that, whereas Marina Coast water would be coming off the pipeline and not utilize that aspect of the project. Does that answer that portion of the question? Yes. Okay. I don't know, Keith, you want to say the cost?
We're looking at in the neighborhood of about 1,500 to 1,600 an acre foot. As Paul had mentioned, there's still some variables, what grant funds are available, how do the FORA funds come into that, and still those are model numbers, so those are our targets right now. And just in comparison, the Tier 3 potable rate is right around 1,600. So our goal is to really try to make this as cost effective to potable water as best we can.
Thank you. Any other board member questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone in the public have any comment or questions relating to this item?
Since I am not a member of the board nor of any of the FORA committees, this is the avenue that's open for me if I have some input. We talked about this. First of all, pure water should not be associated with recycled water, especially for the public. There are communities in California already receiving recycled irrigation water for the watering of crops. That's food we're going to eat and put in our stomach. Water is a very, very important issue, especially clean water. We see what happened in Flint, Michigan. It has also happened here, but we're so proud of the peninsula until we cannot recognize when the public's health is at stake. What needs to be done is the replacement of outdated water pipes, lead-laced water pipes on Fort Ord and on the peninsula. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people making more money coming into the community with their projects that has not been sanctioned by the communities that are involved. We need to get away from that process and really recognize that the end users are people, their families, and their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Anyone else in the public have any comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back for a motion. Again, the motion is for the resolution, approve the resolution recommending of the Pure Water Monterey project to the California Public Utilities Commission.
So moved.
It's been moved by Board Member Prendergast. Do I have a second?
I second it.
It's been seconded by Board Member Gunter. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstains? None? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentations. Yes. We will now go to public comment. Is there anyone in the public having a desire to make a comment? You have up to 3 minutes on any matter that is not on the agenda. We're going to get Ms. Stone a seat so that she'll be able to sit closer to the mic because she is a lot of good input to this board.
Everything keeps moving around here. I never know. It might be in the middle next time. Okay.
Thank you.
Just have to get to it. Okay. Now. Okay. I was speaking about the presidential proclamation concerning the 20th anniversary of Executive Order 12898 on environmental justice. And it talks about how 2 decades ago, President Clinton directed the federal government to tackle a long overlooked problem for low-income neighborhoods, communities of color, and tribal areas disproportionately bore environmental burdens like contamination from industrial plants, landfills, and air pollution. And these hazards worsened health disparities and reduced the opportunity for clean air and housing, and the poor housing conditions. These hazards worsen health disparities and reduce opportunity for the residents, children who miss school due to complications of asthma, adults who struggle with medical bills. This executive order affirmed every American's right to breathe freely, drink clean water, and to live on uncontaminated land. Today, as America marks the 20 years of action, we renew our commitment to environmental justice for all, because we all deserve the chance to live, learn, and work in healthy communities. My administration is fighting to restore environment in our country's hardest hit places. After over decades of inaction, we recommend an environmental justice interagency working group and invited more than 100 environmental justice leaders to a White House forum alongside of tribal governments. We are working to reduce pollution on their lands and to build a healthier environment for every American. We established the first ever national limits for mercury and other toxic emissions from power plants. As we mark this day, we recall the activists who took on environmental challenges long before the federal government acknowledged their needs. We remember how Americans, young and old, on college campuses and in courtrooms, in our neighborhoods, and through our places of worship, called on a nation to pursue clean air, water, and land for all people. On this anniversary, let us move forward with the same unity, energy, and passion to live up to the promise that here in America, no matter who you are or where you come from,
Ms. Stone, there is
you
2
can
minutes.
pursue your dreams in a safe and just environment. And again,
Thank you, Ms.
thank
Stone.
the Monterey County Board of Supervisors for recognizing us and making
Ms. Stone, thank you.
February Environmental Justice Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public have any comments? Again, this is on matters that are not on the agenda. Please, you do not have to state your name or your place of residence, but you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Mimi Velasquez, and I'm here on behalf of family members that I have that are residents of Fort Ord. It's in regards to 2 issues. The first being a 60-day notice that went out at the end of January for Schoonover Park residents regarding a rental increase. I called around to different entities here locally in Monterey County to ask for redress of this, being that Preston Park residents were able to get a vote because, of course, FORA had a stake in ownership of the park. But Schoonover Park residents, specifically government employees, have no redress of this. And they're just being told that, hey, it's only $60. But if you're a struggling family, $60 can be 3 packs of diapers, 3 days of groceries, 2 tanks of gas, et cetera. So it's not just $60. And being that FORA represents this community as a whole, even though it doesn't supposedly have a financial stake in Schoonover, The Schoonover Park government employee residents that depend on the discounted housing need help with this. The second issue I'd like to talk about is in regards to the traffic issue, actually regarding the road issue. Jim Road has been fixed more than once, yet the other main arteries, Giggling, Garrison, and Jim Moore Road, go ignored, and they have gone ignored for decades. And they need to be fixed. Residents are having vehicle repairs resulting from potholes that are improperly or not even covered. There's Garrison's in need of pavement. Giggling is in need of pavement, which is ridiculous because our police department is actually on that road. So before we spend any further money in other cities like Salinas, when we redid Davis Road with Fort Ord funding, we need to make sure that Fort Ord roads are properly taken care of first. And also, in regards to the lighting, if this is no longer a military base, then it's no longer mandated to have low lighting. And with the inundation that we get of coastal fog that will sometimes regulate visibility to shorter than 10 feet in front of your vehicle, something needs to be done about that. People living in Fort Ord should be able to see just as much as people living in Marina and Seaside. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the public? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. I did not see any questions. I did see or hear serious concerns. Did I miss a question that someone may have made? Okay. We will now go to the executive officer's report. All of these are information items except for item 10H. Mr. Hulemar?
Yes, Chair O'Connell, members of the board, item 10H is an administrative consistency determination for entitlement of the City Marina's Dunes Specific Plan Fast Casual Restaurant Project. First of all, I know that all the board members received our notice last week that we were going to be considering this at the request of the city manager. We moved ahead. I know several of you noted that in the letter I had been demoted to assistant executive officer, and I think that's just a typo.
We're going to put Mr. Norris as a board member, and you're going to be...
The report we received from the City of Marina, we had been looking at this project for several months. The city last week took an action, which was the one we reviewed, that went to the Design Review Committee. It indicated that this project had more consistently complied with the general description in the area and the City of Marina's request of the developer to meet certain certain density requirements. The developer appears to have done that. Last night at their Planning Commission meeting, they also approved this project and found the project to be consistent with the base reuse plan. Staff has provided you with the analysis that was done by the City of Marina and the checklist that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority staff conducted to review each and every one of the items as it pertains to being consistent with the base reuse plan. And so staff has found this entitlement project to be consistent with the base reuse plan. We've not received a notice from anyone their intent to appeal this. It's simply provided for you as information. It says information action in the event a board member or a member of the public wishes to appeal this to the FORA board. And after hearing no appeals, we believe that our administrative consistency determination by the executive officer should stand.
Any questions by any board member? Board Member Rubio?
Thank you, Chair. I want to congratulate the City of Marina for their consistency determination approval, and the City of Seaside stands behind all the efforts of Marina and our sister cities in accomplishing their economic development goals. And if there's any way that the City of Seaside can assist, just let us know. We'll be ready. Thank you.
You can send all your residents over to Marina to eat when the restaurants are all built, okay?
So, Chair O'Connell, that's the only item from the executive officer's report that I would like to highlight. The other items provide information, and I believe this would be an opportunity for the public, given the presentation on the fast casual.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public desiring to make comments relating to any of the items, including items 10A through J? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Well, we will leave it open for a moment. Yes, Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis, for the record, is coming as a resident of Marina, but she is also on the Planning Commission for the city of Marina.
The question is this retail strip mall consistent with the four-door reuse plan? And am I able to show some of your base reuse plan maps?
Ms. Davis, you will have up to 3 minutes. I understand you're trying to get something together, though.
So including not, how much do I have in addition to show?
I just see if you can get the maps.
Okay, I will just tell you, in your figure 4.1.5 in the BRP, you have all of the dunes area, a sea of pink, which is mixed-use district. This is 4.1-5. You have on map 3.3-2, same thing, all pink for mixed use. Why was that? Because the base reuse plan anticipates that mixed use and high density will create an economic booster engine for City of Marina. We see the same thing in map 3.3-1. When we come to the Marina General Plan, and I'm looking at a 2001 map, that whole area has been drastically reduced, where the whole Dune Shopping Center is not, according to Marina zoning, is not mixed use. It's retail services. The idea of high-density, multi-story, walkable destination gateway that is hammered in the base reuse plan and again for Marina's advantage is completely abandoned in that massive dunes area. Now there's very little of the mixed use left, and this project is on one of those small remaining pieces. If I could show you the map, you'd see how the mixed use has been whittled down, and even farther than on the 2011 map, because now we have the VA clinic. I think we can all agree that the Dunes Shopping Center is not a mixed-use development as defined by FORA or Marina zoning and GP. The proposed strip mall looks to continue this obsolete and inconsistent model that's offered by shown at the Dunes. And this is a textbook example of what happens with jurisdictions when FORA fails to defend the base reuse plan. In this case, the City Council really got educated about the economic benefits of mixed use, what is FORA all about, the wisdom of the plan. They made a sober, strategic evaluation of the original project and found it inconsistent with the BRP and their SP and GP, and they sent it back. All hell broke loose. They were derided, utopian, unreasonable, arrogant, don't like food. There were idiotic articles in the paper with shallow, provocative titles to get people riled up. The project comes back almost unchanged to the Planning Commission 8 weeks later, at which point no one wants to stick their neck out because, you know, they don't want the grief and they're tired of it. So,
Ms. Davis, your time is up.
it never even got to council. I'm just asking you to do your job and to take these things seriously.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Connell, members of the board. Just like to correct the record. Doug Yount, representing the applicant, Scott Negri, for the fast food casual restaurants in Marina, which was approved 5-1 last night by the Planning Commission, found consistent with the base reuse plan, found consistent with the specific plan, found consistent with the general plan of the City of Marina. It is a project that is meeting the needs of the community, meeting the needs of Fort Ord, meeting the needs of Monterey Peninsula. It had actually undergone very significant changes. I was brought on in late November to assist Mr. Negri with the project. He had made significant changes from the time that the council reviewed the project in October and denied that previous project, but significant changes made, compliance with FARs, compliance with all of the documents, compliance with all of the regulations, even agreed to additional conditions put on the project last night. And it's a good project. And it's always a balance between ideals or further hyperbole that may be forthcoming relative to ideals of mixed use and density. The actual technical term is multiple use as opposed to mixed. But you have to always balance that with the reality of economics and the economics of the region and the economics of the peninsula. It's a good balance. It'll provide great services to CSUMB students, particularly to others in the area, to the new housing that's coming, and I encourage the support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Closed public comment. What we just had was 2 comments, one in favor and one against the particular item, but I do not see a need for a motion to approve this particular item since it is administrative, but I'm open to correction if Authority Council says something different or the Executive Officer.
No, this is an administrative consistency determination. It's an entitlement. It's made by staff unless there's an appeal by a member of the board or a specific written appeal or verbal appeal by a member of the public, and we have not heard that.
Thank you. So we'll proceed to the board member comments. Any member of the board have any comments on other matters that are not on the agenda or want to tell us about what they're doing for Valentine's Day? Or President's Weekend? Seeing none?
No, I'm sorry, I had my
Yes.
finger up. I just, I know that's not part of the procedure, but I just wanted to compliment Margaret Davis for her very astute comments. I think what has happened here is the ship has sailed, but I want to tell you that I agree with her as a professional that the original designation of a mixed-use zone there was by a past board, not upheld, but that does not mean that we're in a position at this point to correct it. And I want her to know that that is why I did not appeal the project.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, next meeting is March 11, 2016, and we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations.